Tully, you have a lot of experience with athletics and being part of sports teams. What do you feel needs to be done to help change the perception of being a college athlete?
Perception of being a college athlete in what way? In a negative way? Well,
what do you think athletes can do to help change the way they're perceived by peers or by their college campus, and to hopefully to better, in a positive way?
I think the main thing that athletes can do is to act in the way that they wish to be perceived. If athletes want to be perceived as responsible, respectable adults, I think they should behave in that way. And I think that a greater percentage of the population behaving in that way will kind of change the perception, one person at a time.
What they can do to kind of eliminate this perception of negative stereotyping among athletes, is to break free from this role and say, so be comfortable with getting good grades, be comfortable with not going to a party and getting as drunk as possible and taking home a girl, be comfortable with having a girlfriend, be comfortable with treating people with respect and realizing that hockey's not the end all be all in life. And so I think that breaking stereotypes is going to take athletes who are willing to get out of the in-group, of that, identified athletic role, and to reach out and be more well-rounded, more completed as a person, and to break free from those stereotypes and don't buy into those stereotypes, and that's how you start eliminating the perceptions, the negative perceptions.
Do you think it's all on the athletes, or is there anything that a school or a community can do to bridge the gap?
I think, I don't think it's all on the athlete. I think a lot of it has to do with the athlete, but I also think that the college can do things to present athletics in a positive light. I think a lot of times, especially with the defender and stuff like that, it's easy to publish the negative story. It's easy to, say that a certain sports team has had negative press or negative, altercations with public safety, and then to publicize that in the defender. But instead of doing that, why aren't we publishing good things that the athletes are doing at St. Mike's? The GPA's, highest it's ever been for many of the athletic teams, including basketball. The community service outings that a number of the teams do.
I think it's definitely changing the expectations and changing the way that an institution like the college sees athletes. I think things like what Dave Landers does, where he goes around and tells the faculty that our athletes are actually pretty good students and pretty good people. Influencing the athletes to get the professors to come out to sporting events. I think those are all steps in the right direction. And I think that coaches need to buy into that and do the same kinds of things. I think a lot of coaches just kind of accept status quo and don't really push their players to become better people. And I think that's really important for changing the overall perspective.
Well, what do you think non-athletes have to do to change the stereotype of athletes?
Well, I think that's kind of a loaded question, because I think that the stereotype of athletes is not really the problem of the non-athletes. I think that the stereotype exists because there's some kernel of truth, and so therefore it's up to the athletes to put it upon themselves to change it. I think that the stereotype will be there until the truth behind it goes away.
I think the non-athlete actually plays a huge role in this as well. I think it's equal parts. I think that the non-athlete has to challenge themselves and to not judge a book by its cover, because I can tell you one thing is that I've been judged multiple times just because I'm a hockey player. I've been judged by the non-athlete who thought I was going to be a douchebag, all those negative things. And once they got to know me as a person, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Alex, when I first met you, I thought you were going to be the biggest douchebag. And I go, why? Well, because you're, the captain of the hockey team, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, it's really offensive, from my perspective as an athlete who's trying to break through these stereotypes, because the non-athlete or the people who are, on the outside looking in have to be willing to shed their judgments and to, not judge a book by its cover. Not all athletes are the same. And I understand that's difficult because, it takes, all the strides that we've done, between trying to break through these stereotypes. It takes, one guy to buy into it, and that's what people see. So it's one of those things like, it takes so hard to like rebuild, but it's so easy to kind of break down again. So I think for the non-athlete, they just need to be, conscientious of how they're perceiving athletes and how they're perceiving stereotypes. Challenge their own views, because it's easy to say, oh, that guy's a douchebag, or that guy's an idiot athlete. Yeah, that's easy to do, but do you really know that person? So don't sell them short just because you've had previous experiences, because we're all different. So yeah.